So what I'm going to say is welcome. Welcome, everyone. We have a wonderful program, and I don't want to spend too much time in here. I think what we'll see is in our experience has been that in the next few moments, more and more people will join, and we'll eventually have probably, well, I don't know, but we have many of our participants are listening afterwards. And so welcome to the people who will be listening to this on a podcast. But my name is Carolyn Peterson, and I'm at the Washington State Library, and with Jennifer Fenton, our Continuing Education Coordinator, the two of us are responsible for putting together the programs that we produce on a monthly basis, and we have an excellent team of backup individuals. Jan here at the State Library, we want to thank for doing our technical producing, as well as Jeremy Stroud, who will be lurking in the background. And so if you have any issues, please do not hesitate to email Jan and or get in touch, write a message to Jan, and he will help you out. So we want to say thank you for that. And Jennifer is, like I say, the Continuing Education Coordinator for the Washington State Library Library Development. And so she was the one who was asked Claire Meeker, and our author, and Richard Jesse Watson, our illustrator, to give us a behind-the-scenes tour of what it takes. So with no further ado, I will turn the program back over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Carolyn. Well, welcome, everyone. Today's program is going to be slightly different. One thing you're going to notice is that we are actually going to use a timer. And when that timer pops up, I'm just going to turn it on so you can see what it looks like. You can easily stop it. All you have to do is click on the X and it will disappear from your desktop, but that will allow those who want it to use it. So go ahead and X out of that timer because we don't need it at the moment, and it may pop up again later, and if it's in your way, just go ahead and turn it off, but that way we will keep things right on track. Today's program is a special program featuring authors and illustrators and librarians, and my name is Jennifer Fenton, and I am indeed the CE Training Coordinator at the Washington State Library. And in a past life, I was a children's librarian, youth services librarian, assistant children's services manager at Snow Isle, as well as a variety of other things, including collection development, librarian for children's materials, and branch manager. And when I was at Snow Isle, I helped to develop an author and illustrator program where we worked closely with authors and illustrators in our libraries. And Kristen Pifo is in our audience today, and she is now at Snow Isle Libraries. She was at Snow Isle before as a children's librarian and is back now as the Children's Services Coordinator. And so she can speak to kind of that legacy of welcoming authors and illustrators into our libraries. And while I was there, I had the privilege to meet many wonderful authors and illustrators, and a couple of them have agreed to come back today and share with everyone in the state their experiences working with libraries and their experience as an author and illustrator. So today we have with us Claire Meeker. She is the author of many books. Probably one of her most famous books is Hansa the Baby Elephant, about the baby elephant that was born at the Woodland Park Zoo a few years back. And Richard Jesse Watson is an illustrator of many books, including very charming Tom Thumb. And they're going to share with you today their thoughts on working with libraries, and they're also going to invite you to share your thoughts with them. So this is going to kind of be a discussion. And now I'm going to introduce Richard Jesse Watson, who you can see while we were waiting had fun doodling. So without really being familiar with this whiteboard and the tools, he was able to create a very fun rabbit design. And you're going to see his artwork throughout today's presentation. Now I'm going to turn it over to Richard to introduce himself, and take it away, Richard.
Hey everybody, it's can everybody hear me? I assume with the little light on. I want to say how much I love librarians, and I think we actually need 10 times as many libraries and librarians as we have, and so I will do everything in my power to change government and the world, because I know libraries are like this essential nugget at the heart of civilization. And anyway, I don't want to get loopy about this, but I love books, I love librarians, and I love libraries, and I love to see that kids and adults and everybody can just mingle and learn and share and find these, bound treasure chests, I like to call books. And my sister worked at the Pasadena Public Library. We had these beautiful, beautiful old libraries, and she worked there. And I want to tell just a quick little story. There was a homeless kid who would come in every day at the main library there, and he would take care of his little sister, prop her up with a bottle. I think his mother was a hooker, so she was gone all night and slept all day. Anyway, the librarians kind of took this poor boy under their wing and took care of him, made sure that they pointed him to the right books. Anyway, he ended up going to Stanford. They got him a scholarship because he was so well read. And I mean, that was just a beautiful picture, sad, but a beautiful picture of this amazing resource that libraries are. So I am such a huge fan of what you all do for the community. And obviously the world is changing, but libraries are really at the heart of helping everybody get handles on this changing world.
Thank you, Richard. And did you want to share a little bit about some of the books that you have illustrated and written over the years real quickly?
Yeah, my first book was a book by James Dickey. He's the fellow that wrote Deliverance, Bronwyn the Traw and the Shapeshifter. And it was kind of a problematic book in that it was a very long and epic poem, and yet it's a unique and fabulous story. So that was my first introduction into really becoming a children's book illustrator. I've been working on stories as well, and so I've done like Jennifer mentioned, I did Tom Thumb. I used my son Ben as a model. And now Ben is also an author and working on some novels and picture books. He wrote The Boy Who Went Ape and sold the story to Scholastic, and then I illustrated that one. The Waterfall's Gift was a book I did with Sierra Club, and I think Gibb Smith was the co-publisher. The Magic Rabbit, I wrote and illustrated that for Scholastic. And The Lord's Prayer just came out this last month. So that's my newest book, and I'm also working on some new stories that I'm writing and illustrating. In fact, my agent is shopping this week in New York to some publishers a story I wrote about a little snail called Slick.
Thank you very much. And thank you for letting us use your artwork to make the slides more interesting. So there will be time to ask Richard questions later. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Claire. And Claire Hodgson-Meeker, I'm sorry, we just went slide too far, just also came out with a new book, and we'll talk to you about her books and her love of libraries. Claire.
Hi, well, welcome. I'm very happy to be here. This is really amazing, this kind of virtual get-together. And I'm wearing a headphone for the first time. I am used to a microphone because I also perform with a music group, but I've never worn a headphone. I feel a little bit like Madonna here with my little microphone next to my mouth. But anyway, I have a brand new book called Soccer Dreams that's coming out. Actually, it's available in stores as of this week to libraries and librarians and to bookstores. And I'd like to play you a trailer for the book. This is a new kind of promotional vehicle for children's books. And it was really a lot of fun to do. So without further ado, let's play the trailer. So the Soccer Dreams book is my latest book that really explores some multicultural themes around the idea of teamwork, because I was fascinated to see how the members of the Sounders team came from all over the world, and how was it that in their first year as a professional soccer team here in Seattle, could they accomplish the wins that they did. They were U.S. Open Cup champions their first year and their second year out, which is an amazing feat. And I thought that's really, that notion of teamwork and team building is something that is so important for kids to learn and to understand what goes into that from their earliest stages up. And I feel like my books are there to look for positive messages for kids, like exploring teamwork, but to also help them visualize their dreams. So careers that they might want to go into, be it zookeeper, elephant keeper, marine mammal specialist, or just a professional soccer player. So I guess my time is up.
Thank you, Claire. That was a great video trailer for your book. Thank you for sharing that with us. And if you had trouble viewing that, please let us know and we'll send you the link. All right, now we are going to go into a question and answer session. And so we're going to start. I'm going to ask Claire and Richard, I'm going to give you each a little bit of time to respond. How do librarians find and connect with authors and illustrators? Claire, how about you kick this one off?
The best way is through our local organization, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And they are available online. The URL is scbwi-washington.org. And there's also a national organization, actually international organization, scbwi.org, which when I first joined back in 1993 had maybe 7,000 members, and now I think it's got hundreds of thousands of members from all over the world. Other places would be websites. Both Richard and myself have websites. Lots of authors have websites and our own websites, and then through Facebook. So those are three that, you know, right off the top of my head, we all have profiles in Facebook, and some authors have gone ahead and had Facebook pages just for their books. Maybe Richard can speak to that. I haven't gotten there quite yet, but my books are all on my website, www.clairemeeker.com.
Thank you, Claire. And Richard, would you like to share some ways for librarians and illustrators to connect?
Well, if any of you have a gypsy wagon, that would really make an impression. There actually is a guy in Port Townsend who made a gypsy wagon. So, you know, that would be one way. Drive your gypsy wagon up and we will just follow you anywhere. But other than that, I think Claire had it right. Through websites, Facebook, visiting blogs or emails, really anyway. A lot of times it's word of mouth, just as someone recommends, you know, us to someone else, maybe someone, a librarian or a teacher who has seen us. A lot of times, too, some of the most successful events that I have had have been when a library will team up with a local elementary school, so that I might do a school one day and the library the next, or you know, in close proximity, or vice versa. That way the parents who hear about it from their kids can also come. So that's been quite successful, to have those kinds of combinations when possible. But usually I think it's primarily word of mouth and Gypsy Wagon.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you to both Claire and Richard for those excellent ideas. And I can speak from experience that what Kay O'Connell, who was the Children's Services Manager at the time at Smile, and I did is we went to CBWI, Society for Book Writers and Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. We went to the local Seattle area meetings to network and meet authors and illustrators. There's also an event that they hold twice a year at an independent children's bookstore, which are getting to be a rare species these days, but they would have the inside story where we would have the opportunity to hear about new books coming out from local authors and illustrators and to meet with them. So that was how we connected. All right, time for our next question. How do librarians find author-illustrator fees and create contracts? So I am going to let Richard start this one off. Richard.
Thanks, Jennifer. Usually you just contact us directly through email, and we can send you a little agreement form, and we can tweak it till everybody's happy with it. And it's sort of like the price of gold. It goes up, it goes down, and so we try to accommodate with schools if there is a fee. In Port Townsend, I try to do everything, just gratis for my community. But when I have to leave my work or travel, it helps if it's if possible, it helps to get paid to compensate for leaving my work behind here. But usually, authors and illustrators will have kind of a set fee, but I find that it helps if there's flexibility, because some districts, some areas obviously don't have the funds that others have. So I try to be really flexible and just make it work. And book sales helps, but also linking up with an elementary school will sort of expand the exposure, and maybe different people can sort of pitch in that way.
Thank you, Richard. All right, Claire, please go ahead and respond.
Yeah, that's usually the way, either phone, email, phone. I have an email on a contact email on my website, so anyone who's perusing websites for authors, illustrators can get to me that way. And word of mouth, like Richard says, is often the way it happens, which is nice to know that librarians and teachers are sharing that information in a community. And as far as the contracts go, and as far as fees go, I don't put my fees, I haven't put fees up on the website. Kind of because of what Richard was saying, that the fees are negotiable based on, how far I'm having to travel, and also what the library or school can afford. I want to take that into account and be as responsive to your needs as possible. And as far as creating contracts, yeah, it's usually done just a little memo of agreement that's dated and signed. And that's mostly for me to just outline my talk, that we get an agreed upon talk and how long you want it to be. And then also the important thing is getting technical needs, what other technical equipment I'm going to need for the presentation.
Thank you both for those great responses. And I just want to welcome those who are just joining us, and also let you know there will be time for the audience participants to ask questions soon as well. So please keep track of your questions. You can also type them in chat if you want to type questions into chat, and we'll get to them later. So our next question for Claire and Richard: what type of programs do authors and illustrators do? So this, I have a feeling we're going to have a couple very unique perspectives. So Claire, why don't you tell us a little bit about what types of programs you and maybe other authors do?
Sure. So I come about these programs usually around, I try to organize them around the particular book that I have, the most current book that I have going. I make a PowerPoint presentation around every one of my books. Occasionally I'll be called in to do a talk on story structure or something where I can talk about all of, work in all of my books. But other times, like recently, I did a presentation down for the Fall City Library on the Return of the Bald Eagle, and the book that I was promoting was the Rachel Carson book, I Could Not Keep Silent. But it was fun. We did a quick PowerPoint presentation, and then an art project. Richard, you would have gotten a kick out of this. It was a kind of a collage project of making a bald eagle. And I had kids from 3 years old to adults taking part in that art activity. I think it's a great way to draw families in, and everyone has a good time. So it's a combination of not lecture, but PowerPoint slides and talking about the book, and then just going deeper into a subject through art. So I'm sure that Jesse can fill out around that, but mainly it's around my books. I have 10 books and lots of subject matter, from folktale, Thai folktales, to raising baby elephants, to rescuing a wild sea otter, to football, the San Diego Chargers, and now a young boy from Kenya encountering the Seattle Sounders.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that. All right, Richard, can you tell us a little bit about Illustrator and Illustrator author programs?
Yeah, wow, Claire, those sound great. I'm going to have to sit in on some of your sessions. Yeah, I also do a PowerPoint that shows my process, because I often make models or maquettes to learn more about my characters. So I bring some of those papier-mâché or biomechanical models or whatever it is. And then I will, after showing a PowerPoint, I usually do a collaborative story with the kids where they give me their ideas, and then I draw out, I show them what I would do if I was in my own studio, where I'll take their ideas and I'll do various sketches or character studies. Sometimes I let them come up and draw, and we sort of go back and forth with this the way I used to do with my own kids. And sort of I like to call it a leapfrog approach, because it's stories and pictures, but there's a continuation of the narrative, sort of like with the Hugo Cabret book. Sometimes the text is carrying the narrative, and then sometimes the text completely stops, and then the images carry the narrative. And I like to show pictures of some of the petroglyphs from where I was born in the Mojave Desert. Up in the mountains, there are these ancient petroglyphs, and it's a primitive narrative before the written language. And so story just has to be told, whether pictures or with words. And often I like to show the young people that one picture will inspire a whole story. Chris Van Allsburg often begins many of his stories with just an image. That sparks the story. But then on the other hand, playing with words. And I think Slick came about, my little story about the snail that I'm just finished, just by the sound of language. Snail, slither, and slide, and slip, and slugs. And so I was playing with language and realized, hey, this is a snail, and I used to love snails as a child. So there's a story here. So it really happens both ways.
Thank you, Richard. And I have seen both Richard and Claire do programs at libraries, and they're both very engaging with the children and adults in the audience, and it's lots and lots of fun. All right. keeping in mind the time, we're going to move on to how should the library set up for the program. Richard, did you want to talk about your setup needs?
Usually I just need a space so the kids can sprawl out on the ground, and I can either bring a projector, or if you have a projector, that's great. Sometimes it's nice to have a document camera. Otherwise, I can just draw on a whiteboard. I've drawn on blackboards. I've drawn on pads of paper. There was one library where we all sort of spread it on the ground and just drew pictures on paper, either a big piece of butcher paper so we can do a mural together, or individual little drawings. So there's all kinds of formats. In fact, one library, I don't know if it was Mount Vernon, I can't remember now, but it was before PowerPoint, and I had a slide projector, only the late afternoon sun was so bright that I ended up holding the slide projector and shining it up at the ceiling, and everybody laid on their back and watched the show up on the ceiling. So, as you know, I'm sure everyone here has to be flexible with things that happen. Oh, Arlington, yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, so it's all just fabulous, delicious, wonderful fun.
Thank you, Richard. And Claire, please share with us.
Well, I usually do the PowerPoint from my computer and bring my computer, so I just need a table to set it up and a screen or a whiteboard to project it, and an extension cord. And if I'm going to do an art activity or like a paper folding activity, sometimes I've done that with my Who Wakes Rooster book, where we make little books that the kids can then draw pictures in and about who wakes them up in the morning. If we're needing to do an art activity, then to have some kind of table for them to do paper folding. And beyond that, chairs, if the kids want to sit on chairs, or as Richard says, just sitting on the floor works well too. The presentation is usually 45 minutes.
Thank you, Claire. And one thing that I think you can take away from for library setup is communication with your guest presenter and what they need, and make sure that you work together to do the best arrangement for both the library and the space available and the needs of the presenter. So how do libraries and authors and illustrators collaborate with schools? And Claire will let you go ahead and start. And the timer is to help track our time. Just X out of it if you don't want to see it, please, but it is to help keep us on task. So, Claire.
Well, actually, this is one of those questions that I would love to put to you librarians. What are some of the ways that you have reached out to schools? What I've seen is where I live on Mercer Island, and our Mercer Island Library has a lovely conference room, classroom, where schools can come for special presentations. So anytime a library is having an author presentation or illustrator, they will publicize that to the schools through flyers. And here, it's easy to just call up the schools because there aren't that many on Mercer Island. But the other thing is involving bookstores too, because we have a wonderful bookstore, Island Books, and Roger Page is constantly providing books to author events in the schools, and it's another way. We authors and illustrators are always looking for opportunities to be able to sell our books and get them in the hands of kids and families. And so this is a way, since libraries generally cannot do that, to have a mechanism or a vehicle for being able to sell the books and get them into the hands of kids.
Thank you, Claire. And Richard?
Yeah, I like what Claire said, is that I really would like to hear from some of the librarians about ways that they have found for connecting and sort of cross-pollinating with the schools. So yeah, the collaboration, I think just finding ways to tie into some of your existing programs. When I did the visits to the Snow Isle libraries, that was an existing summer reading program, so anytime that I can help link up or facilitate or collaborate with some of your ongoing goals and objectives, then I'm really happy to do that. And you know, with books and the whole digital revolution, I think everyone's taking another, a new look at what it is to communicate and what it is to make books. And so I think that I'm still discovering and trying to figure out how do I leverage the new changes, with just this revolution. But my publishers say it doesn't mean that books are going away. It just means that the books that they actually cut down trees to make will be even better books. So in a way, that's kind of an interesting thought. And I think there's an ancient proverb that says, "Of the making of books, there will be no end." And so that was back when it was all handwritten on parchment and papyrus. So books go through this amazing change, and it'll never stop.
Thank you. And just remember that if you're looking to do an author illustrator program and you have a school nearby, you might check with the school and see if they have any authors or illustrators coming, and that might give you an opportunity to share costs for travel, that kind of thing. And maybe the library could have an evening program after a school presentation or that kind of sharing of resources. All right, now here is our final question for Claire and Richard before we turn to our participants. How should author-illustrator programs be marketed? And Richard, go ahead and start us off.
I think each author and illustrator will also post things on Facebook or on their blog or send out personal emails if they know people in the area. But any kind of newsletter or website, obviously, I think people are more and more looking at websites and looking at Facebook and things like that. So flyers and posters, the bigger the poster, the better. So just creative. I think maybe Dave Letterman. I remember at the Olympics one year he was giving away canned hams. And I thought, hey, that's kind of effective. So maybe there's some incentives. Giving away a free book or giving away a canned ham or something. I don't know. I think we have to be creative because people are strapped for time. And Thomas Friedman calls this, there was the Iron Age, the Industrial Age, the Information Age, and now it's the Age of Interruption. People are bombarded, and we have to sort of find a way to, weave our way through people's busy schedules. Also, Jennifer, my art. Oh, I can answer. Should I answer that?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind my art being displayed. Often I even have a show at a library where I, can hang up original art or something like that. So yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. And Claire.
Yeah, there's always the traditional media, newspapers, online at your own library websites. And in schools, flyers to schools, it's another way. And I know in our local Mercer Island library, when I've done presentations, they've been very effective in getting people by having a display of my books, just like Richard was saying with his artwork, having a display of my books there in the library, in the bookcase when you first walk in the door, announcing the program. That's pretty effective. So the libraries do a great job, I think, of between written material and their online, their website, King County Library System. Has a really nice website, and so there are lots of traditional media places too.
Thank you, Claire. All right, now we're going to ask you, the participants here, and you can either type into chat or you could raise your hand if you want to use a microphone. And our question for you is, how can authors and illustrators who want to come to libraries market their programs to libraries? How can they make you aware of what they have to offer? So for example, do you prefer to get a packet in the mail with examples of programs, or email? And if so, how would they find your email? Do you want to track them down? Different ways for them. How do they make these partnerships with you? And Linda from Yakima says, websites, letters, postcards that highlight the different kinds of programs that might be offered for different age groups is helpful. So Linda, did you want to know specifically then what age group they're targeting? So what helps Linda is to know what age group your programs target. Thank you, Linda, for sharing. And I see some people are typing away, so we'll wait for those answers to appear. Okay, Nancy from Walla Walla says, or I'm sorry, Nancy, you're from Tri-Cities. I was getting my different libraries mixed up. We need a budget amount and want to know if indeed you will come over to Eastern Washington. So Richard and Claire, did you want to speak about travel to Eastern Washington?
I can speak to Eastern Washington. I did a whole week of programs over in Yakima about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. It was wonderful. I was invited by a school in Union Gap and worked with kids on writing for a whole week. And it was so wonderful for me because I got introduced to a part of our state that I never spent much time at, and I met all kinds of wonderful people, an artist whose work I still have up on my breakfast room wall. So Yakima was, I'm always game for going to different parts of the state and around the country.
Yeah, Eastern Washington is fabulous. I love to go there. I also spent a week in that Central Valley, Omak and Liberty, and a lot of the smaller libraries. And I love the idea of going to some of these libraries that might not normally have access to a lot of the activities in the bigger metropolitan areas. So I think it's so fabulous. I remember as a child seeing different visiting authors, or in fact one time it was a visiting cowboy, but these things make incredible impressions, you know, on children, and anytime you can nourish their experience, it's fabulous. So I would love to. Besides all those wheat fields and things, I feel like I'm, you know, Laura Ingalls Wilder when I go back there. I mean that sounds terrible and stereotypic, but I don't mean it that way. I just get inspired. It's so beautiful and it's so different from out here with all the rain and the ferns and the moss and all the vampires and everything.
Thank you. And I see Kristen from Snow Isle says it would also be great to be able to see a sample podcast, or I'm guessing maybe a YouTube video, 5 minutes or so, to see you interacting with children at schools and libraries. So that is a great idea. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing that. And Sue, also over in Eastern Washington in Columbia County Rural Library District, says, letters are great, but expensive for author and illustrator, so creative emails get her attention as well. And Jolena, welcome Jolena, you snuck in here. She says she agrees with what's been said. So thank you guys for sharing. We really appreciate that. And now we have another question for you. How do you see the future of children's books? Is digital going to overtake print? And while we were talking about this in preparation, we came up with the thought that there's the power of the story. And so do you agree that the power of the story will always be there no matter what the format? And I believe it was Richard, you mentioned the power of the story. So just spend maybe a few minutes percolating and thinking about this and the future of children's books. You can kind of see that rabbit is kind of looking to the stars and the sky and what's out there.
Jennifer, can I interject a thought while people are writing?
Oh, please do, yes.
Claire, my son Jesse also did a soccer book called Hope for Haiti, and after the earthquake, he just wanted to do something to help, and so he came up with this story. He went to Haiti, and he took deflated soccer balls to Haiti, and then he also visited some orphanages and linked up with several different organizations, Artists for Peace and Justice and World Vision, and different projects that were doing things. But anyway, one of the things that he said was when he visited these children, and a lot of them were orphans, in fact, but he really, in the midst of so much devastation and dysfunction and collapse of infrastructure, he saw hope in the eyes of the kids. They want to connect. So he wants to go back and do Skype visits between the schools in Haiti, even in these sort of refugee camp type situations, with schools or libraries in this country, and to get the kids to interact. But they want to tell their story. They want to learn about our stories, and so it really boils down to story sharing and just learning back and forth. So that power of story is so compelling at every level, you know, from the youngest child to all of us, you know, grown-ups. We really respond to that power and impact of story.
Thank you, Richard. And we have a comment here from Sue, who says, you lose the tactile with digital, which is so important for children. And thank you, Sue, for sharing that perspective. One thing, too, Richard sent Jesse when he published this, or had this book published, and they put the book in a digital format online, where if you read it online, there is a donation made or to the cause. So that was an interesting way of combining the real book with the digital. Sue also points out no electricity is necessary for a book. Thank you, Sue. So it sounds like you guys don't see children's books going away. And
well, that's very heartening to hear that. I know I listened to a talk by Nancy Pearl a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying that she was asked the question of whether she would ever get a Kindle, and she said, no, categorically no, I will never get a Kindle. And she said just that it's the touch, it's creating the space, you know, in having the intimacy of reading to a child or a child holding a book and really getting engrossed in something large that's not just on a screen, not to mention our eyes, what this may be doing to our eyes, and the expense of this. You know, who wants to put, you know, a $500 expensive tool? You know, how many people can afford to pass those around? So I think books are I hope that books will survive all these other digital and electronic media. There's room for all of them.
Thank you, Claire. Angelina, thank you for kind of summarizing this in a great way. You enjoy e-readers but still prefer the paper form. There's room for both. So we only have about a minute left for this question because we still want to do some other things, including take your questions. But a question that Claire and Richard had for you was, what does your library do at a pajama story time or another story time or family program? If you could just type some ideas for them so they have an idea of what you guys do for children. And while you're typing those answers, we'll come back to that in a few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a web tour set up here where we're going to let each of our guests tell you a little bit about their website. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up one of these sites. And Richard, feel free to tell us a little bit about what's on your website, and I know you also have a blog. So go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, well, on my website, it's still in progress here, so I need to activate each of the books as a button. But I basically, let's see, yeah, I have a little bio. That's me when I was in the desert, and my dad was a rocket scientist, so that round thing is actually some kind of helicopter gun turret or something or other. But when I was little, I liked to share some of my drawings or some of the things that inspired me, these gold prospectors. I grew up seeing those every day. So, yeah, I have some bio things. I have a portfolio that you can access here through Flickr, I think it is. And basically, you can select different things. I do have a session, I think this was when I was in Yakima. So I talk a little bit about different sessions that I do with kids, sort of what's involved in my presentations. There's an Etsy store, there's my blog, which I don't seem to be able to access. You can contact me in a variety of ways. But anyway, so you can sort of just explore, and I'm continually adding to it. So it is a work in progress.
Thank you, Richard. And now let me bring up Claire's website here. Let's see. And it looks like I'm having a little bit more difficulty.
Oh, there we go.
Is it loading now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, my website is also under, it's about to change because I'm trying to retool the home page to really focus on the Soccer Dreams book. But as you see, we have a revolving screen up top that where you can press on any particular, read more on any particular book, and it will actually go to more information about that book. And I'm not sure we can do that. Let's see. Go back. There we go. I also have an author bio section like Richard was talking about, and here we go, about the author, and testimonials over on the right side that kind of run along the right side for school presentations that I've done, and reviews and awards for my books. And I also, then a section on my books. Let's see if we can, there we go. So then you can press on any of these and get more information about the books. This section, Why I Write, is more of a journal idea. And here you'll see more pictures and a little bit about my favorite books growing up and a little more about me. And there I am in my office where I am this morning. And finally, events. You can go there to look at any calendar events I have coming up, and we're in process right now of updating that because I have a lot of signings coming up for the Soccer Dreams book. So that's a basic tour.
Thank you, Claire. Now we have only a few minutes to wrap things up, and I want to make sure we leave time for questions. So I'm going to ask if you guys have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat or turn your mic on to ask your questions. And I'm going to go ahead and read aloud the responses about the programs. We had, let's see, about story times. Sue says that she does toddler story time, lots of movement, rhymes, music, books, and acting out of story. And Kristen at Snowell says stories, flannel boards, songs, finger plays, and a craft, often theme-based. Lots of opportunity for the little ones to interact. And Jolena, who is from the Yakima Nation Tribal Library, says we try to make it more interactive so that the children can be comfortable. And Linda Nixon from Yakima Valley Library says, for story times, I like to do the up-down format. Song stories, rhymes, but with activities and games interspersed so that the kids can be up and moving and down and listening. And she says, take-home crafts are great. Library promotion hanging on everyone's fridge at home, but collaborative projects that stay at the library so families can come in later and see the creations are fun too. So those are some thoughts on that. And go ahead and continue to write your questions for Richard or Claire. And we're going to just quickly share their websites in case we already looked at the tour, but if you didn't get it, they are in chat and you can also see them on the slide. And you can also have email contacts for both Richard and Claire. Richard's new book, The Lord's Prayer by Rick Warren, is coming out soon. And Claire's new book, Soccer Dreams, Playing the Seattle Sounders FC Way, is also now available from Partners West. And we will be posting the archive of this program on our First Tuesday's website. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to contact us later as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are just about out of time, but I believe, Richard and Claire, you probably have a few minutes to hang around if people have questions for you. And I know that Carolyn wanted to introduce next month's program before we'll turn it back over to Richard to show you what he was talking about for interactive activity. So, Carolyn.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, next month's program is going to be very different. We're aiming at the adult reference crew or anyone who does work with adults. We are having Carol Buswell from the National Archives and Records Administration, and of course they are based up in Seattle on Sandpoint Way and a wonderful resource for our region. And they recently have released 3 new online programs to help make searching their 10 billion documents a lot more easier and fun. And I actually shouldn't say it's just adults because they have 3 programs. One is a fun interactive for kids, and then an interactive website for teachers and their students, and then a new search prototype. And so what she is hoping is that you will come and find out the wonderful resource we have in our region and learn how to access it more efficiently and effectively remotely. So that's what's going to be happening next March. I guess we are in March. In April. It'll be April 5th at this time and same place, so we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, just please continue to type or ask questions. And Richard, did you want to share a little bit about how your story activity works?
Sure, Jennifer. Usually when I'm doing a story activity with the kids, I will have them we'll talk a little bit about what makes a story, the different elements. There's, plot. There's, let's see, what do we have here? Oh yeah. There's plot, and there are characters, and there's setting. So I start with kind of the basic components that the youngest child might get a handle on. And if we start with a character, and it can be, again, I may start with having them tell me lists, a T-Rex or a, talking toaster, whatever it is. Oops. Oh, that's supposed to say talking. Anyway, okay, so I'll have them give me ideas, and then I might do a a doodle of oops, let's see. Let's see. So I'll draw as they tell me, whatever it is. I'll maybe draw it or let them draw it, and so we sort of build with pictures and with pictures and stories. We'll start to build different possible characters, and then who might their friends be, and then what is the strength of these characters. And the kids really relate to superheroes because it's sort of an exaggerated version of human reality. So what are their strengths? Do they have a super strength? Are they really good at something? What kind of problems do they have? I said every character's got to have a weakness or a problem, and so they can relate to that really easily. So then we come up with characters, and then virtually by just putting them in a setting, all of a sudden the plot starts to take shape. Does the T-Rex, is it a baker? Does it work in a fancy restaurant? Does he live 400 million years ago? Does it live on Mars? Is this T-Rex, sitting behind them in class? You know what I mean? So by playing with the characters, the kids quickly see, hey, the plot actually begins to happen, the setting, and then we find out what do they want? What do the characters need? And then it just takes off.
Thank you, Richard, for sharing that. Claire and Richard, any last thoughts?
Well, it looks like most people are off now. I'm not sure who is left here, but I just wanted to say that the power of story, as Richard said, is really what drives what motivates us, and what brings us together. Since the days of old, talking around the campfires, the power of story is what continues to help create community and bring us together. And I feel very honored to make this my modus work. So thank you. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you both, Claire and Richard, for sharing today with us and being here. That was really great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jennifer.